I found out my parents sold my house without telling me when a neighbor sent me a photo of a bright red sold sign sitting in my front yard. At first, I thought it had to be a mistake. Maybe the sign was for the neighbor's property. Maybe someone had placed it in the wrong yard. But when I zoomed in on the picture, my stomach dropped. The faded white porch railings, the crooked oak tree by the driveway, the old mailbox I had replaced myself. There was no mistake. That was my house, and apparently it had just been sold. I was sitting in my car outside a construction site in Dayton, Ohio, staring at the picture like it couldn't possibly be real. My grandmother had left that house to me when she passed away 2 years earlier. It wasn't just property. It was the only thing she left behind for me. Every weekend, I had been fixing it up, painting walls, repairing the porch, replacing broken windows. My plan was simple. One day, I would move back and turn it into something better than the worn-down place it used to be. But now, a stranger owned it, and I had no idea how. So I called my mom. She answered after a few rings, already sounding slightly annoyed. I asked her one simple question. Why is there a sold sign in my yard? She went quiet, the kind of silence that tells you someone is deciding how much of the truth they want to admit. Then she said something that made my chest tighten. "Oh, that. We meant to tell you. It was just easier this way." Easier. That word hit me like a slap. I asked her what she meant, and she explained it in the calmest voice imaginable, like she was talking about returning something at a store. Apparently, while I had been working out of town, my parents decided the house was too much responsibility for me. They said the maintenance would drain my savings, so they made a decision. They sold it, without asking me. And that still wasn't the worst part. My dad had arranged everything through a friend who worked in real estate. The paperwork had already been finalized. The sale was done. Then my mom added something that made the situation even worse. The money from the sale had already been deposited into their account. According to them, they were just managing it for the family. I felt heat rush to my face. That house was the only thing my grandmother had left me. She believed I would build something with it. She believed in me in a way no one else in my family ever had. And now it was gone. So I asked the question that mattered most. Where is the money from the sale? My mom sighed, like I was being difficult. She explained that the money had already been used. Some of it paid off their debts. Some went toward fixing their car, and some went to help my younger brother with college tuition. Then she added something that made my jaw tighten. You'll understand when you're older. I was 28 years old, working 60 hours a week, paying my own bills, and somehow I was still being treated like a child. When I questioned it, my dad grabbed the phone. His voice was already irritated. "Everything in this family belongs to the family," he said. "Don't act selfish." Selfish. That word stayed in my head long after the call ended, because for years I had been the one helping them. When my dad lost his job, I sent money. When their roof leaked, I paid for repairs. When my brother needed textbooks, I bought them. I always believed family meant supporting each other, but suddenly something became painfully clear. That support had only ever gone one direction. I ended the call before the argument could get worse. Sitting in my car, staring at that photo of the red sign, something finally clicked. My parents hadn't just crossed a line, they had erased it completely. And for the first time in my life, I wondered what would happen if I stopped playing the role they expected, the dependable son, the family safety net. That night, I sat in my apartment, lights off, staring at the same photo again. My grandmother used to say something that suddenly made perfect sense. When people show you who they really are, believe them. The next morning, instead of calling my parents back, I called a lawyer. Even saying the situation out loud felt surreal. I explained that my grandmother's will had transferred ownership of the house directly to me. I explained that my parents had somehow arranged a sale while I was out of town. There was a long pause on the phone. Then the lawyer said something that made my stomach twist. If everything you're saying is accurate, that could be illegal. Hearing someone else say it out loud changed everything. For years, I had convinced myself that whatever my parents did fell under the category of family matters. But sitting in that lawyer's office later that week, looking at the paperwork, the truth was impossible to ignore. The signatures weren't mine. The authorization wasn't mine. Someone had sold my house anyway. The lawyer explained my options. I could challenge the sale in court. It would take time, it would cost money, and it would absolutely destroy whatever fragile relationships still existed with my parents. Or I could walk away, keep the documentation, and simply stop letting them treat my life like their emergency fund. For the first time, I realized those were two very different kinds of victories. A few days later, my mom called again. Her voice sounded strangely cheerful, like nothing unusual had happened. She asked how work was going, asked if I was eating well. Then she casually mentioned that the transmission in their car had failed. Repairs were going to cost thousands. I already knew where the conversation was going. "You've always been so responsible with money," she said. "Maybe you could help us out this time." I leaned back in my chair and let the silence stretch. The pattern suddenly felt obvious. My parents created the problem, and I solved it, over and over again, until now. So I asked her a question. "Did you ever plan to give me the money from the house?" The line went completely quiet. Finally, she cleared her throat and said something about how the family had needed it more urgently, how someday everything would balance out. Balance. That word almost made me laugh. For the first time in my life, I didn't rush to reassure her. I didn't promise to send money. Instead, I said something she clearly wasn't expecting. "I'm not helping with the car." The silence on the other end instantly turned tense. A second later, my dad grabbed the phone. He started yelling immediately, calling me ungrateful, reminding me of everything they had sacrificed to raise me, telling me family was supposed to support each other. I let him finish. Then I calmly said one sentence. "Family also doesn't sell each other's houses." He kept yelling, but something strange happened while he did. For the first time, I didn't feel guilty. I felt steady, because I finally understood something important. For years, I had mistaken guilt for loyalty. Eventually, he hung up. Weeks passed, then months. At first, my parents tried sending softer messages, almost apologetic, but never actually saying the word sorry. When that didn't work, the tone changed. They started blaming me, saying I was tearing the family apart. But here's the thing no one tells you about boundaries. Once you draw one, the world doesn't collapse. My life actually got better. Without constant family drama, work became easier. My savings grew faster than they ever had before. And for the first time since my grandmother passed away, I started thinking about the future I actually wanted. About a year later, my brother called me. He sounded nervous, like someone delivering news they weren't sure how I would react to. He told me our parents were struggling financially again. Medical bills, credit cards, the same cycle repeating itself. Then he asked the question everyone had been building towards. "Do you think you'll help them?" I thought about the red sign in the yard, the house my grandmother trusted me with, and the moment I realized my role in the family had always been the same, the safety net. Finally, I answered. "They still have 3 kids," I said quietly. "They chose which ones counted." And for the first time since that Tuesday morning, I knew walking away had been the right decision.